and welcome to Scale Car Garage. Well, another chat. This one was another evening chat, and with someone who, not only a remarkable person, but wonderfully entertaining to speak with. And I had such a great time speaking with him. And you've got to see his race room. And I don't want to give too much away because it is just it's just remarkable, and I hope you find it to be as remarkable as I did. But this chap is another wonderful slot car enthusiast. He's been in the hobby for a long time, which is absolutely wonderful. So I'm sorry I'm gushing, because I hope you enjoy my conversation with Marek Plachecki here on Scale Car Garage. Well, Marek, first of all, thanks for joining us, and it's an evening, so we're both ready, right, for our evening chat?
Indeed.
Okay, well, cheers. Na zdrowie. Well, great. It's great seeing you. You look great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and so you
don't look so well, but I look great. I don't know how your hair stays the same color all these years, and I'm terribly jealous. Must be the iced tea that I drink a lot of.
Must be. Oh wow! So you got your track set up, but can you give us some background about just how you got involved in the hobby?
Well, when I was a young boy, I guess I was 11. I was reading a magazine, and I guess it was it was Car Science or Model Car and Track or something. Anyway, got excited about it, and my parents ended up buying me an Eldon slot car set, the Eldon Daytona set from the hardware, not the hardware store. It was the Wright House, which was like a department store in Brantford. And that got set up on the carpet. And of course, it had 2 pins so that the cars wouldn't fall off. And it ran on 6 volts. And it was absolutely horrendous, but it was the greatest thing in the world. And so while the rest of the world was getting their Strombeckers or Scalextrics, I was racing on an Eldon. And then about a year or two after that, as I headed in the grade 8, grade 9, my friends started getting rid of their Eldon track. And so I collected up all their Eldon track for like $1, right? And built this 4x8 table. And then I built up a big track. And then again, I was reading Model Car and Track. And there was an article there about how to route a track. And back in those days, you remember when we had, my generation had wood stoves and coal lamps, and in the classroom, we took something called shop class, and we would walk 3 or 4 miles once a week to shop class in Brantford, and we learned how to use every tool going, which has come in handy ever since. Wow. So if you want a picture hung with a gigantic hole in your wall, I can do it. and I routed a track. There was a hobby shop called Big Top Hobbies in town, and I rented the router, which had a radius arm on it that you could adjust. And I bought a bit. I have no idea how much that bit was. And I used a particle board at the time because the MDF wasn't available. And I routed a track and in the basement, and painted it with leftover white paint so you could see the skid marks. And you didn't use copper tape back then. You used aluminum tape that they used to use centuries ago for windows for security. And so I used that tape on it, and I had it hooked up to 2 6-volt transformers in line, so I got 12 volts. And I used MRRC controllers that I forget where I got them from. You remember those little barrel controllers? Yeah. And it had about, half an amp. Well, the motors were sucking about 5 amps. And so, when two guys are racing, one would slow down a bit, so you might throw the other guy off by lifting off and watching his car go right off the end of the table. And so, and that went on. And I ended up buying a lot of, like, not a lot, but a few monogram cars with the original chassis and so on. And I have those. They were the,
I guess they're the nucleus of your collection.
it was back then. And then, of course, university comes along, girls come along, marriage comes along, and that goes away. But in the late 70s, I bought a big, I think, it was an Aurora HO set, 4 lanes.
Ooh.
And used to set that up. And then there was a couple of hobby shops in Hamilton where I was at the time, and I collected up anything I could find that was HO. So, and I still have those cars. And a friend of mine, Bill, was into HO. Bill Gigi, I don't know if you know him.
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, so Bill got me these tires years and years ago, little urethane tires for HO. And I bought like dozens from him because there was some guy up north of Burlington that was big into HO. And so I bought these tires, and I ended up changing out all the tires like a couple of years ago. I had them in the bag all these years. So I changed them out, and I built a little HO track in front of the bookshelf. And my son, when he was born, used to race those with me, the little HO cars. And I had it set up along a window ledge in a sun porch at the time. And we used to race HO. And that kind of went away. And right around 1998, 99, I was, on AOL, how the internet used to work, and killing time one evening after doing schoolwork. And by that time I was a school administrator, and I was taking the laptop home. It was a little primitive, but for fun, I punched in, and it wasn't Google back then. I don't know what it was. It was some strange search engine. I punched in slot cars, and these places started coming up all over Europe. And I went, oh, wow, they never quit. I want to get back into this. So I ended up going to Ottawa Street. There was a hobby shop in Hamilton, and I found that, and they were willing to let it go cheap because it was covered in dust, a Hockenheim Scalextric set. And I have those 2 cars and all the track. And I bought that set, and it started to go from there. And then it went into 2 lanes of Scalextric track that I scrounged and found on 2 doors bolted together. And then the scenery started, where I ended up going to another hobby shop in Dundas, and the lady had a box full of old scenery, and she was willing to get rid of it. How much? $10. So I bought that, and it had Scalextric. Scalextric used to have like a rubber track way back in the day, and it had some of that, and it had a Le Mans start. So I added that in, and then started to expand the track. So the footprint of the track that you will see later today was the footprint of a 4-lane Scalextric track, a little simpler. And then that footprint changed to I decided to route it in the room in our unit, which was genius because sawdust loves me. And so I took all the plastic track and stored it, because by that point I had met Al Penrose, and he had finished his hobby shop in Oakville and was living literally 4 or 5 blocks north of us. So I ended up meeting up with Al, because I had gone to Al's shop in Oakville with my son, and we had raced little HO cars. And every time I had asked Al, how much for the evening racing? Oh, don't worry about it, which probably explains why he went out of business, because he would
very generous.
Al would do anything to promote the hobby, but he would never turn a profit. And it was a neat hobby shop, because he had a Scalextric track that was started under construction, but it was never finished, but the pieces were there. And eventually, to make a long story short, I ended up buying that track for about $200 or $300, and I still have all the pieces underneath this table. Like, I've got them in bins stored, so that when I do cash in on my pension plan, I have a long range plan. It's called Lotto 649. And when I cash in on that and have a gigantic racing room, I will build a Scalextric Classic track. So that track then got removed, and because I had a table with this time it was what was the surface? It was MDF. So I routed 3 lanes into that MDF, and then about a year later, I decided that it had to be better than that. And so at that time I was racing with a fellow who was a cabinet maker, and he did home renos and stuff. And Ray and I talked, and I took all the measurements of the top of that surface, and I bought some sheets of MDF, and we brought them home on his trailer from somewhere in Mississauga, and the trailer unhooked on the tracks on somewhere, and we had to put it back on. But we got everything to his house, and we routed the whole thing over 2 days in his driveway, and then we just brought the sections up in the elevator. I think it's 3 sections, and laid it right down, and then pinned it so that where it joins, it would line up, align perfectly, and our math was dead on. And that's the track that exists today that moved with us when I retired in 2007, when we moved 2009 here to Cornwall, Ontario, not England. Don't get excited, folks. The track runs beautifully. It works really well. It's got a variable power source. It's got Professor motor controllers that I bought many years ago, all analog. And they were set. I think Chris Walker lined up with Professor Motor, and they've got you can reverse the polarity with a switch if you needed to, but they're running negative, I think, right now. And I added a timing system, and then updated the timing systems. So I have 3 different timing systems that can be used now, and the track works really well. And I just keep adding scenery. And I pretend that it's forced perspective, because these are Limax Christmas buildings or Limax buildings, and they're the wrong scale, but they look good. And so when you see a building that's not quite the scale, but a car goes by, just think that the building is many feet further back, and it works really well. It really does. And so the track has just grown and grown until it is what it is today, and the room has become what it is. I like to think of myself as a model car racer and a collector, but I think the proper technical term is hoarder, because when you have 500 plus cars of all vintages and all types, from kit built to scratch built to, and the only thing.
What's the ratio between what you've bought and what you've built, roughly? Do you have an idea?
Oh, probably 10 to 1 bought. But if I buy it, that doesn't mean it stays that way.
Okay, so you do sort of.
Oh yeah. Well, first thing is, most stock tires get put away, or I make molds from them, and cast my own urethane tires, and that saves me a lot of time, because I remember. Who was making tires back then? He still makes them now. Oh, think of a name quick.
Paul Page?
Paul Page.
Yeah.
So the club was getting more sophisticated. I was racing with a group of guys in Brampton and my track, and we were getting more sophisticated, which means we were drinking less and racing more. And so what we came up with was, we should get these tires, because we were using Ortman tires,
right,
but paying a lot of money for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the genius that I am, I wrote, and at that time, Paul probably made a mistake. So he sent me the kit. He had a kit, and it had a little bit of urethane and a little bit of the hardener and a little bit of the dye. Okay. And you got the whole kit, except to ship the kit, you had to send all the chemical information, okay, to ship it.
Right.
So I had this whole kit with all the information of where to find the stuff. Sorry, Paul. And so I phoned them in New Jersey, and they said, "Oh, no, you've got a guy in Toronto. You can get the stuff from it." And so I started buying, and I used, to pour my mold, I would take the old tire, stick it in the bottom of, those little ketchup things that you get at Wendy's?
Oh, yeah.
So that's why they're called cupcakes, because when the tire pops out, that pops out of the little container, it looks like an upside down cupcake with the mold inside it. And then I pour it into that. And that's how the tire business started. And, for a long time, I would supply the club. And then Art got into it. Art Schinkel from Dart Hobbies, he got into it. He makes much nicer tires than I ever made because he has a vacuum chamber and stuff. And then when I moved here, I ended up knowing a bunch of guys in Montreal, having met Old 23. And I have to remind Big Sky Banker, don't listen to anything that Stuart says. He's technically minded. He really knows how to use Excel. He has all the statistics that you could possibly want. If you're running a proxy race, you can't ask for a better man to take care of all the lap timing, all the stats, put it on Excel and have it all figured out for you. But other than that, he's a very boring individual. He's a great guy. Stuart's a wonderful guy and a great scratch builder, and really does a lovely job on his cars, and a great guy to know when it comes to stuff like that. So when we run proxies, he's one of the group. But I had met him. I had retired in 2007 and started volunteering up at Legendary Motor Cars, which is up in Milton, Ontario, and used to take the back roads up, which they still had back roads back then. And because Milton has grown so much, it's frightening. And would go up 3 or 4 times a week. And upstairs of Legendary Motor Cars was the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame, which exists only online now. Yeah. And I'm not going to, I knew one of the guys who was on the board, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I volunteered. And having an educational background, I ended up hanging all the pictures of all the nominees at that time along the wall, and painting a couple of things, and reorganizing the displays, and trying to squeeze into an Indy car. And even back then I couldn't. And but I could get into they had a
the Wolf.
The Wolf.
Yeah.
Yes. And that I could get into because it was a Formula One car of a not an early vintage, but of a
1977, 78.
Yeah, it was. They're a little wider in the pants area, so I was able to get into that, but not the other ones. And that was fun because it would be like you'd be sitting there for days. So I ended up starting to bring all my videos that I had at the time and putting them on a flat screen TV and running them through the day while I sat around waiting for somebody to come through the Motorsports Hall of Fame. And that's how I met Old 23, because he was there for some business or something, and he happened to go there, and he was looking at some model cars on the wall, and we started chatting, and I jokingly said, "Oh, I have like 35 Ferraris at home, right?" And he looked at me, he said, "Are you Ferrari 1950?" And this was from Slot Car Illustrated, and I said, "Yeah, who are you?" And he said, "I'm Old 23." And I went, "I've never heard of you." And then that was it. And so when my wife's parents at the time were in Montreal, so when we went to visit, Old 23 invited me over to another fellow's house who had a big, huge Ninko track. And I met all the guys from Montreal, and we had a lot of fun. And they couldn't wait till we moved. And then when we moved, the connection was back. And that was the start of the Whimsy years, which is West Island, Montreal, Car Club, and Cornwall. And so I'm the token Ontarian. And so we have Well, here, just on this track, and okay, so we'll count to Oakville. I guess over all those years from when the track was built, about 2006, somewhere in there. Anyway, when the track was built till now, I was trying to figure out how many proxies I've hosted with the guys in Oakville or in Toronto area or here, and it adds up. I think it's 20 proxies. I was trying to look at my blog, Ferrari 1950 at slot form, how many proxies, and here we can do a proxy in no time. We've got it down to a flash. We've got the timing systems. We've got a kill switch at each station if we need it. So everything's organized. We can run a proxy tickety-boo. I could run a proxy single-handed. It would take me a month and a half, but I could run a proxy single-handed. Yeah, because by the time you run through 20 cars on each lane, add it all up, yeah, I'd have to get Stuart to put it all on Excel for me. But it is still one thing you can't forget. Like, I'm pushing 70 years old. It's a hobby, right. And don't give up your toys. Like, I still have my 29-year-old Miata. Someday it will die, but that's okay. I think I mentioned that before. It was one of 3 silver ones in 91. Yeah. But, you know, like, the idea is don't give up your hobbies. Yep. Maybe trains. You can give up trains. Oh, even that's fantastic, because I learned so much from watching the train sites when it comes to scenery, right, that I can't do, that they do brilliantly. Like, I have no idea how they make a river look like a river. You know, like, they're so good at it. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas they probably couldn't build a slot car, which is okay. So it's a good trade-off. You make the river, I'll make the car. We'll be all set. Yeah.
Well, maybe they could. It would just go at a constant speed.
Yes. Yeah. We have said that as we all reach 80 years of age, in another 10 years, we will tear up the track and just build railroads and race locomotives. We can just sit and watch them go around and around. Actually, that takes you back to the day, well, although it was much faster, rail racing in England prior to slot racing. You know, I'm sure we could regress far enough. But you have to remember, and this is something that people forget, the great racing movie, Grand Prix, in the 60s, you have to remember, it wasn't the Italian Formula One driver that ended up with the good-looking girl. It was the slot car racer on the big electric track who ended up with the blonde. Don't ever forget that. Nerds win in the end.
Yeah, it's all about the trigger finger.
It's all about the trigger finger, and I'm not going any further than that. That's right. Not going there. This is a family show.
That's true. As we have our drinks, yes, absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. So, when was the last time you ran a proxy?
Last proxy was the Quebec proxy prior to COVID late last year, and the next round of the Quebec proxy. Literally is a Quebec proxy. There's a whole group of Francais and Anglais in Montreal. Right. And the last one, Christian was running the proxy, and it was here, and we had a great time, a hoot. It's not a proxy that gets posted, but, well, it does get posted. It gets posted. There's a French-Canadian slot car site. Oh. And they post there. And it's a lot of fun. And the cars were like 60s vintage sports cars from Le Mans. And, okay. And you know, there's technical aspects in terms of how wide a tire can be, how powerful the motor, blah, blah, blah. So
how many entries did you get?
Oh, well, it was well over 20.
Jeez.
Yeah. I remember the first proxies that Vansky in Toronto organized, the Canadian proxy race. And he ran that for a couple of years and then handed it off. I remember the first couple of proxies we did in Oakville, we had over 60 cars in 3 classes. So it was fantastic. And it took us a whole day to run it. So yeah, but if the proxies kind of shrank in size, but I've had the vintage race across America. I've had the Quebec proxy, the CPR, what was the continuation of that. So there have been a lot of proxies here, and they have been fun. And it's a huge variety of cars, and it's always fun because you get to drive a whole range of skills. This meeting has been upgraded by the host and now includes unlimited minutes. Oh, God bless you. Thanks for popping that up right in front of my face. So I couldn't see you. So anyway,
Okay.
you're going to have to do a lot of editing, pal. Anyway. No, so as you can see, I take life very seriously. But yeah, the proxies vary in size. There have been proxies that have come here with like 18 cars. We're done in like an hour and a half. And then there's, like I said, 60, and you're there for 3/4 of the day, and pizza and beer, and so it's always fun, and that's the key point to it. You can get way too serious with this stuff, or you can enjoy yourself. I remember racing in Race World in Toronto, and my son and I would go there, and we'd have a 1/24th Ferrari all set up, and we'd win the race, right? And then we'd show up the next week, and we'd be last, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And I remember being clued in by a couple of guys. Oh yeah, he's squeezing the can. What? And they take the motor and squeeze the can of the motor just a little bit closer. You're not supposed to open it, but they had ways of opening it. They'd shim the magnet. It went on, and I'm going, I don't need that. I know what motorsports is. It's an excuse to cheat, but I don't need that in slot racing, okay? So to me, it was, and again, even now, it's like the Lotus that Scalextric put out, Jimmy Clark's Lotus, the most recent one, it's way too fast. The little can that's in it is way too fast, way too hot. So I gently took that all apart, which is a nightmare with the suspension members. Mm-hmm. And I put a BWA motor in it with a brass pinion to slow it down, and reassembled it with a great deal of cursing. I had to do that completely sober. And reassembled it, and it's wonderful now. It's a wonderful little car. It's fast enough, okay? It's not going to set a lap record. It's not meant to. I've got other cars that will do the 6.5-second lap. I don't need it from a Formula car from the mid-60s. And so the cars that get built up for that particular era, I end up putting in BWA motors and slowing things down and just enjoying the whole thing. Yes, some of the stuff from the 70s and stuff I haven't bothered taking apart and slowing it down, but I have variable voltage so I can turn it down a bit, and it runs at a reasonable rate, okay? If they're competitive against cars of that era, great, but there's no reason for a Lotus 30 to go faster than the most recent Audi from Le Mans. There's no reason for that, and so I play with that a little bit and slow things down a little bit, and much of the collection of cars is the holy grail car that I absolutely had to have because you had it as a kid, so you want the same body or whatever. Or you have cars that happen to tickle your fancy. Two of the most recent Holy Grail cars were Atlas 132nd Formula One cars. Oh, right. And that's after I got, quite a few years ago, I got on a deal. Actually, it was in 2008. No, it was a little later than that. Anyway, the Americans were just recovering from the first crash, and stuff on eBay was cheap as crap. And so being the entrepreneur that I am, I ended up with the Lotus and the Ferrari from Monogram. And little things were broken, but I got pieces sourced to replace some of the suspension members, etc. And I had these two bodies, and I was looking at them. They were a little rough, and so I'm not ashamed of doing this. I'll farm it out to a guy who knows what he's doing. So I handed them to Chris Walker, who's a master builder in Toronto, full of ideas and just a magnificent artist of the slot car type. And I said, here, make them look good. These are the bodies, make them look good. I'll work on the chassis and all that stuff. So I polished up the chassis, got everything all set up, and then he mailed me the cars. And they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning. And so I remember when I was young, I had one of the Atlas cars, the Atlas Ferrari. And it was easy to find the Brabham, although the exhausts are always broken. So I used, on the paintbrush, I don't know what you call it, the ferrule or whatever it is. So I cut those down and used that on the exhaust, cleaned it all up, painted the gold stripe on it, blah, blah, blah. And it runs like a charm. What I love about Atlas cars are the bevel gears. They are absolutely, when they mesh, it's like listening to classical music. It's just perfect, right? It's not like, something's scraping or something's rubbing or something's not. No, it's beautiful and it's mechanically pleasing. And so I was hunting for years for a Ferrari. And of course, just as things started to crap out with COVID, I found one. And it came and I cleaned it up, and it cost me $100, which hurt, but that wasn't bad because they were going for a lot more than that before. And with shipping, and it was an ePay purchase, and I cleaned it up and made it, and again, I was lucky because the motor runs well. I changed to my tires and that's it. But again, it's kind of an eclectic mix of, did you scratch build that chassis, or did you fix this one up, or was it a car you wanted to find, and it's all there. I mean, I've got a couple of cars that run just fine on about 14 volts, but they're two Scalextric cars, two Lotus or Lotai, whatever or Lotuses. Oh. So anyway, I have two of those from way back in the beginning years, like catalog 1 and 2, right? With the pin and the little brushes, and they have magnificent motors in them that run forever. And I have 5 of Scalextric, cars that they called the Sledge.
Right.
And that chassis was built so that it would pop down, and that was supposed to push the guide down when it ran around. The only thing is, those things run forever. They're beautifully built. They run forever. They run really well. The only thing is, with an open armature motor, sometimes the magnets are starting to lose it a little bit. And if I could find a demagnetizer, or if someone sees this and wants to send me their remagnetizer for free, I would be forever indebted, because I could remagnetize all my cars and all my friends' cars. So if you're listening, Ernie, I know you have one, send it. But it would be like the lab, Frankenstein's monster. It's alive. And then it runs beautifully. No, these run pretty good. The Atlas cars certainly run well. The Scalextric cars, I just up the voltage a little bit. You're okay. And so I'm quite pleased with those, and they're just fun. And then there's a fellow in the group here in Montreal, Peter McGee, and he's a Scalextric collector. So he has all this old stuff and several old Scalextric tracks that he's assembled with beautiful scenery, and he's a real artist when it comes to that. And he and I both have to agree, there's nothing like the smell of an open armature motor. The ozone from the electricity, and it's like that old slot car smell, like it's like an old book. It brings back all those memories, right? And you run 2 or 3 of these cars, you run those cars for an evening for 3 or 4 hours, you have put a hole in the ozone layer the size of, wow, the North Pole. Like the ice cap is melting, and you have to put those cars away for a while because, you know, seals and whales are getting sunburned. It's like, but it's wonderful. And so I have a couple of cars on Scuttler chassis that were open armature Scalextric cars.
Wow.
Or Strombecker cars. I've got a couple of, you know, the Scalextric stuff and a couple of others, the Atlas ones, and they're great cars, but it only shows that today's slot car is so superior. Like unless you have a brass chassis from the day, you know, like when you think of the plastic and aluminum chassis that Strombecker was putting out, they were, shall we say, a challenge, okay? And you'd sand the tires a little bit and then soak them in lighter fluid overnight when you were a kid to soften them up, and you know, and then your buddy would go out and buy a 4J car with a brass chassis and make your Ferrari with a plastic pan look like crap, you know. And those days, I mean, it's nice and the nostalgia is great, but unless you tweak and play. Whereas today, I mean, let's face it, they're toys. So a Scalextric car works great on a Scalextric track, and you know, and the same with Carrera, massively overbuilt like a Mercedes, but it works on their track. It works wonderfully well. And then what you should do with the magnets is throw them out, because they stick to the metal plate in my head anyway. So I have to remove the. I have to. It doesn't work because I'm walking around with a car on my head and people are wondering. So I'm a non-magnet racer because I am. No, but it's again, it's just a fun thing. And if you can't joke around it, if you take it too serious, and that is not to denigrate the rivet counters, because we need them. Because the cars that they make are absolutely astonishing. And I think I mentioned the other day to you, I have the 3 kits arrived, the Bugatti, the Alfa Romeo, and the Mercedes. They're painted, or the painting process has started. Okay. And yesterday I painted in the grills, and now I'm taking 1 drop of Tamiya black, putting it in a couple of drops of water, and I'm sort of rubbing over the grill like a wash, and it falls into the grates of the grill. And so the grill stays silver, but the background falls into black. And that's going to take 2 or 3 days to do, but I'm doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it takes forever. And then, you know, the helmet on the driver for the Mercedes is all wrong because it had a peak on it. And it was a hard helmet with, and that's wrong for the era. So I've had to file off the peak and round it out so it looks like a cloth cap. And
so you're doing a little bit of rivet counting then?
Yeah, but I'm not obsessed.
Right.
But yeah, I want it to look good, and these 3 are going to look very, very good.
Well, not only good, they're going to look correct.
Yes, they are. The wheels I don't think will be correct, but they'll be close enough. They sent beautiful wheels, but I don't think they're that 18 or 19-inch radius with the tiny, you know. But they'll still look good, and they'll be acceptable. Okay. But again, the fellow who collects the Scalextric cars, I think I mentioned this, he takes a sheet of clear plastic, Lexan, and heats it up in the oven and takes it out and lays it down. And then I asked him if he had a vacuum table. No, he actually carves the buck of the car. And then when the plastic is just the right melting, he rams it down and squishes it into it, and then cuts it all out, paints it up, and builds his cars. And he uses all kinds of whatever he can scrap together for chassis and put together and put them underneath. And they're wonderful. Like he'll build motorcycles that work. He'll build all kinds of really old cars that work, and you know, and they're great. All those little micro cars from Japan that we never had here. They'll build a version of each one of those, like just amazing stuff, and it's all great fun. So slot cars, whatever turns your crank, as long as you're not racing wing cars in a big track, because I don't care. Because how you control that over, you know, 1.2 seconds on a king track going 10,000 miles an hour. Don't try to marshal on the inside lane because it'll cut your arm off. You know, no, no. That's slot racing. We're model car racers. And I do toy cars. Sorry, but some of them do look like toys, and I don't care. It's great fun.
That's awesome. Holy cow. So you must have quite the collection then.
Yes.
500. And are they all on display, or?
They're all on display, yes. Yes.
Wow. Well,
I'd get up and show you, but I haven't worn pants in months now, so I put shorts on for you.
okay, that's fine.
So I will show you after, sure, whenever. But it is, yeah, COVID has slowed things down. And what did I do over COVID? I put a Pendle chassis that I had underneath my Auto Union that was a Revell kit. And that used to run on a Scuttler chassis. And so that's being put away to save for some other project. And now this will be equal to the cars that I'm building up. But I also have a couple of cars from that era. Like I have an old MRRC Mercedes that I just switched out the old motor and used the original wheels in my tire. I mean, old stuff. You find this stuff, you know, on what's his name, Smith in England.
Oh yeah.
Slot car.
Is it Alan Smith?
Yeah.
Smith or no?
Yeah. I've got all these names I should mention.
That MRC.
Phil Smith.
Phil Smith. I'm sorry, Phil Smith. You're right.
Yeah.
Now that original Mercedes MRC, wasn't it 4-wheel drive?
This isn't that Mercedes.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. Originally that was, and boy, if you can find that, that's a real holy grail, and you better have the money for that.
That's why I thought yours was like that, and I thought, wow.
No, that would, yeah, my investments would have come in. I see Phil Smith's stuff online, right? And I go, like he's got so much stuff that if I ever won the lottery, half the money would be gone on just to fill the collection on the walls, because he's got some wonderful old stuff. Yeah. You know, and even if it's crappy looking Scalextric stuff, it's great stuff.
Well, it has such character.
Yeah, nostalgia.
Yeah. I'm enjoying our simultaneous sip. That's awesome.
Yeah, that worked out pretty good. Was it good for you, John?
It was good. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
next time I'll just put a little red light in the corner so sip time.
Yeah, I've got something on the corner. It says Zoom notification.
Oh.
Yeah, it says no, don't worry about it. It's one of those things that because I had to update, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Fine. Wow. So yeah, that's right. It was Alan Smith. Yeah, he has some really wonderful stuff.
There was a guy, poor lad passed away a few years back, Cooper, and I used to go to his site in England too and buy cars from him.
Right.
But yeah, there's all these guys. Well, Ed Sauerbuck out of Michigan. Right. I used to buy all kinds of brass chassis from him. I think I told you I would call him on the school board's dime.
Yeah.
Why were you calling Michigan? Oh, there was a school board there. I was interested in what they were doing with special needs kids. Oh, good.
Well,
yeah. And Ed and I would talk for hours, and Ed would have some wobbly pops or something, and then he'd ship me a whole bunch of stuff. But Ed was the only guy, and even Professor Motors, a little difficult. If you order out of the States, I get tagged a lot for like duty, which is baloney. Whereas here in Cornwall, if I order from England, they don't care. They just drop it off at my mailbox or at my back door. So I haven't paid a penny of duty since moving to Cornwall. Not a cent. They just can't be bothered. because we don't have a post office. We have a Shoppers Drug Mart. So, because the Postal Service just, that's how it works in Canada, folks. They put them in all the Shoppers Drug Marts, and you go there, and
That's true.
it is. It is. No, but I had a whole list of people here that I was just writing stuff down, and I'm going, I can't believe how many. Well, the one guy, I've raced with him a couple of times on Slot Forum. Bob Chapman.
Bob, yeah, Chappie, yeah.
Oh, he's such a dedicated slot car guy, and he's on the forum, and he's moderating. He's amazing. And Art built him a beautiful track, and all these guys. Well, Harry Wise on Home Racing World.
Right.
I mean, I don't know Harry, but the stuff he does, his site is so warm. It's like, don't overdo it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so those places are all really neat places. Like, I would strongly recommend them to people. There's another site I've been on, but I'm embarrassed to post stuff on it. And it's the Formula 132 scratch build site.
Right.
And I did sign up, and I introduced myself, and I showed one car, and then I look at the stuff they build, and I go, no. They're so beyond me.
Now, that was the chap who had Bear Dog Racing, I think?
Could have been.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Right, yeah,
But,
they do some wonderful work.
Chris Walker builds his chassis, and it's a work of jewelry. It's so beautiful. I build a chassis, and it's a perfect example of how solder clumps.
Well, so you do use an iron still, I imagine.
Yeah, so I file it down, and I bought one of those little torches. Those little tiny torches? Yeah. They scare the crap out of me. It's like a little rocket. I'm going, oh, this is going to take a finger off. Turn it off. And it goes away because, I tried it a couple of times. I actually have a jeweler's block, it has all the little dots on it. I should actually get a chassis building thing and get right into it, because I know the guys that have raced with Art have gotten into building their own stuff. And it's still there, and I'm still young enough that I'll be able to do it by the time I'm 100. So I'm gunning for it. But yeah, the other guy I wanted to mention was Peter Lanois, who does these fantastic light kits, and some of them are available on Art's site, Dart Hobbies. But Peter has it's in my forum. There's a connection to his site, and he's started doing 3D printed chassis, and they're really simple and easy to use, and you can trick them out whatever way you want. And so for schmucks like me, I used one of his chassis underneath a Firebird, because I've got a whole collection of Trans Am cars, because you get the Trans Am cars that Scalextric has, and I didn't have a Firebird. And I had a body that was sent to me years ago by a guy on Slot Farm called Manitou Guy, and I still have a drawer of little kits and boxes that he sent. They were wonderful people you meet, and I still have a drawer full of his cars to build eventually, like whatever, and you scrap together bits and pieces. But I took that Firebird, put it together, and there's a fellow here in town who is a master model builder. He's totally into aircraft now, but he was into cars, and he raced with us many times. And Glenn Norris is an amazing modeler. And so again, I like to farm stuff out. I'll do the chassis work, you do the body work. So I gave him the body, and I said, make this work. And so he did. And it looks fantastic. And we put that on. He also redid the two bodies on my Cox Ford GTs, 1/32nd scale.
So they were original Cox Ford GT?
Oh, absolutely. One's an N-bell drive, and one's a can drive. Yeah,
wow.
and they run really well. And then there was an article in Slot Magazine out of England that Chris Walker clued me into on how to adjust the brush holders on the cans when they were making funny noises and stuff. So I rebuilt the cans and aligned them all, and they run really well. And the shocking thing is, though, if you run a monogram of that vintage with the original brass chassis against the really fancy magnesium chassis, they're pretty damn even. Okay, but you'll never get chassis like that again in a slot car.
No. No, I mean, to your point, I mean, you're talking about what is essentially a child's toy made of magnesium.
That's right. That's right.
Even the wheels were magnesium.
Can you imagine what would happen if you decided that you were going to set a match to that as a child? Just saying. Just saying. Because I know Dan Gurney in his Eagle Racer never had seat belts when seat belts were just coming in, and they asked him on shoulder harness, and he said, why? Because there was a lot of magnesium in that car, and I'm getting the hell out.
Yeah, he said that the thing that scared him the most was a flat tire.
Yes.
Yeah, because then the chassis would scrape along the track, spark, and go up. Yeah. Well, that's and that happened. Remember that experimental Honda that?
Yes. Actually, that was a Lola.
No, well, that's true. It was a Lola chassis, but it was
That's right.
Honda. That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
And Surtees wouldn't even drive it.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then again, Surtees wouldn't drive the Chaparral where he had to lay down and look through the sides until they raised it. And I have that Strombecker car. It is the worst, ugliest looking thing, and I put it on a little brass chassis, and I even left the ball bearing in it that rattles around, and the wing goes up and down.
So the wing works?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, but it works whenever it wants. So you're going down the straight, and it's going blah 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 blah, blah, you know, and you're going, boy, I could see how a kid loved this. Yeah, yeah. But the Strombecker cars are really nice bodies, but you'll have a really lovely Lola, and it's tiny and perfect. And then you put the Chaparral beside it, and it's like, what the, who scaled this? What went wrong here? Why are the sides flat? Why aren't they
round?
You know, but again, that you paint it right and you put it on, and you realize it is what it is.
Right.
And you just enjoy the evening. And I find if you stand by the track with one eye squinting and get real low, and it goes by you, oh yeah, it's like being a Motorsport. That's the proper way of pronouncing it for all our American friends. It's not Moss after Sterling, Motorsport after Motor Sport,
right?
Or as we like to call it now, Tim Horton Raceway. No, it's called Canadian Tire Speedway or something.
No, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've told Deb that when I pass at 110, she should. I want my ashes. Oh, I want my ashes sprinkled at the hairpin. And she says, "How is that going to happen?" I said, "Let the boys take care of it."
So you mean turn 5, Moss Corner?
Yes, that's the one. That's it.
Yeah. Now, you know, there's an A and a B. Do you want to be at A or B?
It doesn't matter to me. B, because I'm just not an A type of person.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a good choice because more people go off at B than A.
Just dump me in a campfire someplace. Nobody will know the difference. You know. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't scatter human remains here. What? It's a campfire.
Yeah, you've obviously haven't seen any races from the 60s.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one of the first races I ever saw was Sterling Moss, I think, won. It was called the Players Canadian Grand Prix or something, and
it was they used to call it the Players 200. Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody ever knew what color that car was because, you know, black and white TV and 3 channels. Yeah.
That's right. Oh yeah, oh man. That was what, 62 or 63?
Oh yeah, way back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, people forget that if it wasn't for Motorsport and especially the Can-Am, but the Players 200, there would never be a Team McLaren.
That's right.
Right, because Bruce McLaren won his very first race with the Xerox Special that he put a Traco engine in, which was basically an Oldsmobile, at Motorsport.
That's right. And what people forget is that the first Canadian Grand Prix was at Motorsport. It was in 1967, centennial year. And actually, Old 23, I don't know why his name keeps coming up. I'm sorry, Stuart. I don't like you that much. But Old 23 came up with a brilliant idea, and it was like a proxy race for cars of 1967, Formula One, and we had a Canadian Grand Prix on a little circuit around here. It was great. It was great. The cars are fun. You know, they're really narrow. I built a Ferrari with the spaghetti tailpipes.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And actually, I think that car won at Chris Walker's track in Toronto, because probably the only person who could handle one of those lime green 25,000 RPM cans that I put in it from Pendle was Chris Walker, because he's a masterful driver, and it won there. And it was doing all right till it came here and then crashed about 50 times in the middle lane. But sorry, Big Brian, you can't drive. And that was okay too. So we had a lot of fun with it. Great looking cars.
Yeah. Yeah, those were probably some of the nicest Grand Prix cars ever made.
Yeah, they were like cigar shaped, and really, and those are cars that evoke emotions for me. Like, and Graham Hill and Jim Clark and all those guys, you just go,
well,
wow.
they also took almost an inhuman amount of skill to drive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, they used avgas in those days. It was the equivalent of strapping 7 sticks of dynamite to your body.
That's right. And the tanks were all around you.
Yep. And the tires would last up to 3 race weekends.
Yeah. Nice. Well, the tire's getting a bit worn. We're going into our 4th Grand Prix, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what these racing tires are like? They don't last as long as the road tires.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we put tread in the racing tire. When I think of those days and I look at the tires, I go, "You're kidding me, right?" Like the radials on my Miata are better.
Yeah, and they were bias ply.
And don't forget that 1.5 liter double overhead cam engine is what sits in my 1991 Miata.
Yeah, you got the 1.6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little under.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you go, yeah, that's a Formula One engine. Wow.
Well, and you look at your chassis. It's the same thing. Double wishbone, coilover springs, independent rear suspension. It's basically a 1.5 liter Formula One car.
That's right, and I drive it as one too. Slowly.
It's all about just don't lose momentum in the corners. That's all.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I had a car like that once.
You did?
I had a Renault 5. I had a Le Car. It was a moment of weakness, and the guy that I was team teaching with had one. And he said, well, if you go to Glenlevin Motors in Oakville, you'll get a real deal. And so, okay, I'll get one for commuting in. So you're going, I want you to think, folks, of a long uphill turn on a major 6-lane highway in Canada, the Queen Elizabeth Way, at the Ford plant, which is kind of ironic, I guess, or whatever. And I would wind up to 75 miles an hour at the foot of this thing. By the time I got to the top, I was doing like 55. Like, it was the most gutless. And then he talked me into, we can trade it in and we'll get $3,000 each for the car, and we'll get Renault Fuegos. But it wasn't the 1.5 liter turbocharged, which had no intercooler, so it would catch fire when you parked it.
That's why, isn't that why they named it a Fuego?
That's right.
Yeah.
Fire in Spanish or something. It was the 2-liter version for North America that didn't sell at all. And the 2 cars that we bought were black, and they had those wonderful French folding sunroofs where you could put a baguette out the top. And it had a 5-speed, and the entire interior was covered in mouse hair so that nothing would slide off it. And it had a 2-liter engine, and it ran really well, but the electrical system was suspect, so that if you were in the middle of a blizzard and the fuse box blew out, you had no lights to drive 30 kilometers home. Okay. And then to fix that, they would pull a wire down, stick a new fuse on it, and it would dangle there. And I'd go, what is that? Oh, don't worry about the fuse box. This will make it work. So I've had lots of fun with the Fuego. If it was electrical, it broke. But it had a magnificent Blaupunkt stereo in it. But the car ran and ran and ran, and it had much less rust than a Ford product of that era. Like, it was amazing. And when you were in around a corner of any, like, even if the corner was like just the gentlest corner, because it's French, it has a tendency to go right over like this, or like this, because it loves doing that. But you could drive over a 6-inch curb and not know it, because the suspension travel on French cars is for the cobblestone roads, and that haven't been changed since the Roman invasion. I have no idea.
So you know, it would have a bit of body lean, but your eggs in the basket wouldn't.
Not, yeah, exactly. Well, in the 5, you could fold the seats down multiple ways, and you could put like tons of stuff in the back, like a little mini truck.
Wow.
I think it was meant to replace Le Chevaux, you know, the Citroën 2-cylinder. It was meant to replace that with a much more sophisticated piece of crap. And so I don't know what the thinking was, but I mean, there it was. It worked, but it was not built for North American highways. No. But hey, AMC had a concept, boy, and
well, yeah, well, they were actually there was a Renault that was built in Ontario in the Brampton.
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Alliance.
The Alliance, yes, to signify the alliance between AMC and Renault.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
It was like taking 2 pieces and putting them together. It was like, I don't know. And then Renault came out with a big carb, and it was, remember, Audi was coming out with their jelly bean shapes, and the Ford Taurus was hot. So Renault came out with a car that was going to get built in Brampton, and that's when AMC sold out to Chrysler.
Right.
Remember? And so the Eagle went along with that. So it was an Eagle for a couple of years.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. It was the Eagle brand. Yeah, that was a rebadged Renault. Oh, that's right.
Magnificently forgettable cars. But why are we even talking about that?
Well, let's maybe look at more memorable ones. What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah, you think we should take a little tour around? Is that okay?
Sure. Let's see if we can make it work.
I'll start with the track, and then we can go back to the cars.
That's right. So there's the track. Middle lane is 65 feet. It's built to the radius, 3-inch centers, and the radius is set up to scalextric, because it's supposed to be imaginary track that any 12-year-old British schoolboy would want to have.
That is really gorgeous. Wow.
And basically it lights up.
Oh, so you've got on-track lighting as well then?
Yeah, because the Limax buildings light up. Wow. Any artwork on the walls was a gift from a variety of people, from my wife to my barber to slot car racers to my son to my father-in-law. And in books, I love books, so there's a lot of stuff here that just reference, and videos.
Is that a working tram?
Yes. There, we lit it up.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh, look at that. It all lit up.
Yeah.
Well, you have certainly raised the bar on track scenery. Wow.
And yeah, is it overdone? Yeah. Is it gaudy? Absolutely.
No, it's brilliant. Oh, look at
But
the billboards.
the billboards are Lionel, and I found a site online that sells real billboards, and they had photographs of them years ago. And so I would take the photograph, print it out, and then paste it in. So there's a variety of eras of billboard. I put lights into the Scalextric pits.
Now those pits look like they're like the original Scalextric pits.
They are. And I just added lights to the back.
Oh, this is magical.
I'll tell you when the granddaughters come.
Oh my gosh, it's like Christmas throughout the whole year.
Exactly. No eggnog though.
Yeah. No, I guess you're stronger stuff than that, eh?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm understating by calling this magical. Oh wait, that's a hot air balloon that's moving.
That's right.
Oh, that is too cool.
Because what could be more representative of what I'm full of than a hot air balloon? I could think of something else, but we'll leave it at the hot air balloon.
And a Ferris wheel, which is, hey, listen, a lot of racetracks have Ferris wheels.
Absolutely. Le Mans.
Le Mans, exactly.
That's right. This is the Ferris wheel that was used in the movie. No, I'm making that up, but it's worth being made up, right?
Oh yeah. Now, is that original Scalextric's like white picket fence there?
Yes. So whatever I managed to collect, I used, and then I made actually the signage. You can buy sort of like a burlappy feeling textured paper that you can print on, and that's what I use for the signage.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And a variety of trees and stuff. I mean, there's little scenes hidden all over. I mean, obviously the pits are full of people.
And those are all vintage figures too.
Oh yes, they are there. I don't know if you can see him. I'll try to. Again, you can do some editing here. The old man is by the.
Oh, that's Enzo.
There's
There
Enzo.
he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he tends to hide out and complain about everything and try to cheat.
So he was just waiting for his cannoli there.
That's right. That's exactly what he was getting. And then the artwork is all around the room. When I retired, my staff bought me Mario Andretti and Graham Hill.
Oh, wonderful. Now, what is the Autodrome there? What is that? That's really cool.
The Autodrome is a book. I don't have the book, and I should have. It's a book that has all the old tracks that have disappeared in Europe.
Oh, man.
And that's one of the cover photos. So because I call this the Drome or the Autodrome or the Corn Drome, all the books and my collection of autocourse. I used to race with a chap who was my bus driver for a Quebec City trip in 1989 with the school. And then we met years later, slot car racing. Poor Patty passed away from cancer a few years back.
Oh,
and that's why we have, see the Chinese restaurant with the Irish pub?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Patty's wife was Oriental, so we had to have a Chinese restaurant with an Irish pub as a tribute to him.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Silly stuff, but
no, that's beautiful. That's brilliant.
You do stuff like that, and of course, again, we can edit. The carnival is going on. There's a graveyard and a fortune teller who tries to predict who's going to win the race. there's the Papa bands. There are artists. There's a snake oil salesman. I think his name is Trump. There's all kinds of little vignettes that are hidden throughout the track that the guys like to come and try and find or joke about. I mean, there's the homies.
Oh, you gotta rotate it around. I'm seeing your watch. I can't see the homies.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There you go. The homies.
Nice. Oh man, I love the signs that you've got on your buildings too.
Yeah, there's the you can see the Pope trying to weasel tickets from the Italians who run the races here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And of course, the Mounties ride by there all the time because they have no clue.
I am surprised you haven't got somebody with a broom right behind them.
And yeah, that's a good idea. I'll be looking for that. Now, these are the Royal Canadian Frigidaires. And they must march behind the bejeweled turtle, which is their mascot, as you can see here. And they are renowned the world over for being the only regiment that never lost a man in battle, because they always march behind the turtle. By the time they get there, the fighting's over. So you have an idea of the mentality of this track.
Oh, it's got such a spirit. It's awesome.
And I like this too. When I turned 60, which is a decade ago, that's frightening. Old 23, love the guy. Built me a car. It's a 1950 Ford, Merck's Fabulous Polish Sausage. What a wiener. Car number 60. And when we get old, a streetcar will ride by and take us away.
Oh, no way. That's so cool. I didn't even see that. So that goes around the whole track?
No, it's actually an old Christmas set that I picked up at Panther Hobbies for a song and a dance. And it goes till the end of the beer gardens and then back again. It reverses itself on the same track. It stops and then reverses back.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. What? Oh, Marek, the track is absolutely wonderful.
And here he comes.
There it comes. Yeah, there it comes.
Oh, look, we're more excited about the train than we were about the cars.
Let's take a look at the cars as well, then, since you've got.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to them.
Okay, sorry.
You wanted to see I spent a lot of time looking for this on eBay, but it works.
It really works.
Yeah, you wind it, you turn the crank,
and it oh my gosh, and it just travels up and down the
up and down. Yeah, it travels up to the shelves and through the planes, and then comes back. You just wind it. The cars, yeah, with no feedback.
Yeah. Oh, so there your F1's up there. Yeah, yeah.
Ferrari shelf.
Wow. Wow. Oh, Chaparrals.
Chaparrals, Ford GTs.
Oh, you got a P68,
Lolas.
P68 there.
Yeah, two of them.
Are those original Scalextrics?
Oh, one is an NSR.
Oh.
And this one is an Airfix. We'll put it over here. It's an Airfix body on a EJ's repop of a Strombecker chassis with a Scalextric small can in it, and it's really quite fast.
Wow, that's so neat.
and the Alfa Romeos and the Cobras and some of the modern stuff and the Trans Am stuff on top.
Oh, and there's the Firebird.
The Firebird, just a beautiful job on the Firebird by my friend Glenn Norris.
Wow.
He also did, oh, I know what I was going to show you.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's one of the Cox 4 GTs.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh man, the original chassis. Oh, gee.
Yeah, and again, Glenn did a great job on redoing the body so that it looked really attractive. And I don't have a lot of room here, but the Porsches, some of the modern stuff.
Right.
And then we get over to the Formula One stuff. We were looking at the.
Oh yeah, the three. Oh my gosh.
The difference between the modern slot car in the middle and monograms on, I guess, the left, and on the right is the Brabham, which is the Atlas car.
Right, and that monogram on the left, that's the one that Chris did for you, the body?
Yes, and a beautiful car, beautiful looking car, runs fantastically well. And I have the Ferrari by Atlas, and I have the Ferrari by Monogram, because those became holy grail cars. Had to find them, had to have them. But you know, if you take a really, really old, like, I don't know if you can see what it says there.
Oh yeah, look at that. We can. Yeah, it's upside down. But scale. Yeah, Scalextrics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lotus. There we go. Triang Scalextric Lotus. Wow.
One piece of the action. And this car was like, I don't know, ugly blue or something. If I was a real collector, I'd leave it alone, but I can't help myself.
My good. And you run it.
Oh yeah. It sounds like a coffee grinder, but it's fun.
Well, and don't forget that car was in Grand Prix, if you remember.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. We'll put it away. What was I going to show you? I was going to show you one of another Lotus. Oh, here it is. So again, this is that sledge chassis that I was talking about.
Oh, right.
Electric sledge. And the car's out of scale. It's obviously about 1/30th, but you know, again, can't help myself. Paint, a few decals.
Well, yeah, and that's a Lotus 38. That was the Indy car.
That's right. And if I can make it work, this is what they mean by the sledge, you see?
Oh, right. Right.
You know, they only built 5 cars with that. And I don't know why, because it works really, really well.
It might have been too expensive, perhaps.
I don't know. Or maybe they were just toys. Who knows?
Yeah.
And of course, there's some scratch-built stuff.
Oh, do I see a bug-eyed Sprite there?
Yeah, actually, the bug-eyed Sprite has a history. There's 2 of them. The one with the wheels that are all wrong was the first one I built, and radius the wheel well so that it would run on a pro slot chassis with a little weight, etc., etc. But the other one runs on a Carrera makes what is it, 1/43rd scale or 1/42nd scale?
Yep, 1/43rd. Yep.
So I took a chassis and played with it and put the little bug eye on it, which was just the right size for it.
Very nice.
And the amazing thing about that is there was a chap who saw it online on the forum. Actually, he saw it on the blog, and he wanted to announce the birth of his son with a bug-eyed Sprite, and asked if he could use the photograph of that car. So I sent it to him, and I've got a postcard somewhere. I can't find it right now, but it announces the birth of his son, a European chap, and that bug-eyed Sprite is on the picture with a mountain in the background, which is kind of cool.
That is very cool.
Oh, Superman.
Was he flying across somewhere? I saw a line or something there.
Yeah, that's the line from the cable car.
Oh, from
and
the tram,
artwork,
right?
the artwork.
Oh, that's Scalextric spot. Is that a painting?
Well, it's a poster, but it's
Oh.
an original Scalextric. And then they reprinted it for advertising purposes. It's, I don't know, number 200 of 1,000 or something. I got it at Mini Grid in Toronto.
And is that an original 67 poster from the Grand Prix?
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Not a repop, an original.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then there's a couple of pictures here by Randy Owens. He's a Canadian artist. My father-in-law bought me those, and they're prints, but I'm even afraid to say what they're worth now.
Oh, jeez.
Because it's a lot, apparently. I don't know why, but what it is, especially originals. But even the prints are worth money. So that gives you an idea of the room.
Oh, it's apt. As I said, it's magical, and I think I'm understating that. It looks so wonderful.
And the primary goal is to go down, lose yourself, and just have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So how often do you just go into the room and lose track of time?
Every evening. I'll go down and I'll YouTube and I'll watch videos and stuff. There's the workshop.
Oh, your workbench. Yeah, let's see the workbench.
Just a few motors.
Oh. Paints, beautiful. Oh, there's your Dremel tool. Yeah. Oh, those are the bodies you're working on.
Yeah, they're coming along.
Oh, do show, please.
They're coming along. I'm working on that grill yet.
Is that the wash you were talking about?
Yeah.
That looks really good.
Now what? For some reason, well, I know that there was no paint on the Mercedes at the time, so I don't want like a glossy, smooth finish on them. So I brush paint the Mercedes with aluminum, and they look metal. But the Bugatti was, just rattle can.
Oh wow, that looks really good. Although that Bugatti looks better than the real car did.
Absolutely. Because the real car was never painted that well because the French workers were always on strike. And
that looks really nice. Oh, that grill is really good.
yeah, but the color didn't come out what I wanted. I wanted a more blood red color. Unfortunately, it's not. So that's okay. There you go. That's
fabulous, Marek.
For any of the old guys that I used to race with in Toronto, here's to you. I miss you guys, but
well, let's do something like that. Like right now, Marek, thank you so much. That track room is wonderful, and I'm serious. Magical is an understatement.
It is a lot of fun. And it's silly fun, and the aim, because I'm a little artistic, so the aim was, like I said, to create something that any 12-year-old British schoolboy would want his Scalextric set to look like, and that's pretty much what I got. And then it was just adding whatever I could get for cheap on sale or broken and fixed from Michael's, and they sell the buildings. And so it's funny because I watched a train show, and these two guys from California do these magnificent layouts with 1/48 scale trains, and I'm going, wait a minute, they didn't build that house. That's a Limax, circus balloon. I have that. Wait a minute, that's my Ferris wheel, and there's a train going by it. So, use the buildings for what they're worth. Use that compressed.
I guess was it called forced perspective?
Forced perspective. That's it. And enjoy it. I mean, the 132nd buildings are there, but
absolutely magic. Here's to you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
But the idea is, and like I said, the timing systems that I have, one of them I can actually run it so that I'm racing like a rally against myself, which is starting to get relatively pathetic in the land of COVID. When you go down, you say, I'm going to race now, honey. Sure you are. And you end up running timed races, Then you get really complex with pit stops and, is the Ford GT going to win tonight? Can I redo that scene from Ford versus Ferrari,
Well, you could always try to switch hands.
That's right. Or why don't I pull down Hunt's car and Lauda's car and go around the track, and then just at this corner here, I'll light a little fire. No, it's like just nonsense stuff goes on, and why not? Why not? And when the guys come over, it's the same thing. We have a Christmas thing that we do every year. Hopefully things have settled. I'm not sure, but if things have settled, we'll have a real good Christmas bash where everybody brings food and we exchange insults and stories and tall tales and have a good time and race our model cars, and never ever give up the fact that you can play with toys no matter how old you are, because it keeps you young.
Yeah. And you know what, though, every one of your collection are truly model cars.
Yeah. Slot cars is one, and I respect you for that, but if they're model cars and they're relatively good looking, go for it. I mean, I'm no master builder by any means, but I have built some cars and had a lot of fun doing it. And
well, here's to you. Thank you so much for taking the time and showing us around. I really appreciate it. We have to do this again too.
Again?
At some point, sure. Keep in touch.
You're frightening me.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
Take it easy. Cheers to you too, buddy.
Thanks again.
I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe.